video, which is the last video in the series on time, I'm going to compare for you the two different types of time, simple time and compound time. Remember that in the case of simple time, we represent the beat with a note value. So we might say a quarter note equals 60, by which we would mean there is a beat, a pulse of 60 quarter notes a minute. Now we would then divide that down into manageable units called measures, and we would have specific ways of doing that, and we've talked about that in the other videos, but that would be our ongoing beat pulse would be 60, and they would be quarter notes, and we could assign any note value to that. That's in simple time. In compound time, we would assign a dotted note value to the beat. And that's the primary difference, is that we would have a dotted note value. So we have dotted quarter equals 60. The difference then is if I were to feel this beat, I would feel the division of this beat into two equal parts. Ta 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 ta. With this time, because it's a dotted note value, the actual beat may go by at the same pace. This is the same beat as I did before, but this time I have three, a division of three. I have a background feeling of three for each beat rather than two. So ta 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 ta. And that's essentially the difference between simple time and compound time. The fact that you feel it differently, that while the beat may be just as fast in either time, it is the background behind the beat, whether or not that beat naturally divides into two parts or naturally divides into three parts, that is what gives it a fundamentally different feel. So to unpack that a little bit more, let us just remind ourselves that the top number in simple time will be a 2, 3, or 4. The top number in compound time will be 6, 9, or 12. But they mean the same thing, in that 2 tells you that it is a duple time. That is to say, there are 2 beats per measure. 3 or 9, that's 2 or 6 tells you that. 3 or 9 tells you it's a triple time, that there are 3 beats per measure. 4 and 12 tells you that it is a quadruple time. Quadruple meaning 4 beats per measure. So if you have any time signature with a 6 on top, it must be compound and it must have 2 beats per measure. Those beats would ultimately be represented by a dotted note value. The same would be true if I have a 3. A 3 on top would tell me, I say the same would be true, the same principle would be true. That with a 3 it would mean that you were in simple time, because 3 is a simple time signature. It tells you that there are 3 beats. It also tells you that those 3 beats would be divisible by 2. They would, a single note value, a quarter note, a half note, whatever it might be, could be assigned to the beat, and that would be your beat for as long as you are in that time. It is the bottom number, remember, that always represents a note value. And so regardless, the top number is going to be different. It's going to tell you whether it's simple or compound, but always the bottom number is a note value. All right? The bottom number is a note value, and we looked at in a few videos ago at the different note, the numbers that represent the different note values. Okay, so duple, triple, or quadruple time, simple 2, 3, or 4, compound 6, 9, or 12. So we can call our time signatures simple triple, or simple quadruple, or compound quadruple, or compound duple, or compound triple. We can use these terms to tell us whether or not we expect the beat to be easily divided by 2, or whether we expect the beat to be easily divided by 3, into 3 parts. So then to bring that over here, we can start to look at and analyze, well, what does a time signature look like? Well, in the case of a simple time signature, you just read it exactly as it is. It's telling you that there are 4, which equals the number of beats, remember, for For simple time, 4 is quadruple. It means there are 4 beats. There are 4. The bottom number tells you the type of beat, quarter notes. This is telling you that the beat in each measure will be equivalent to that. In each measure. Those are not the only note values you will use, but you cannot either exceed that total number of 4 quarter notes, nor can you have less than the total number of 4 quarter notes. All your measures must add up to 4 quarter notes, and then they will be grouped together in such a way that you will have a sense of 4 quarter notes in every measure. So you will group your note values together to represent the beat groups that you find. The same is then true, or similarly, with compound time. You still have a time signature. In this case, you have to just think about it a little bit differently. The 6 in this case needs to be divided by 3 to find the number of beats. In this case, it equals 2. You could just learn this chart, that 6 equals duple, and you will be fine. If you have trouble remembering that, remember that the beat in compound time is ultimately able to be divided into 3 parts, so you can divide 3 into each of these, and that will give you the number of beats. Or you can just learn 6, 9, and 12 is the same as 2, 3, and 4, and you'll be fine. So the 6 tells you that you have 2 beats. Eventually you get there, you get to the point, it's 2 beats. The 8 tells you something a little bit different. Whereas up here, the bottom number told you the type of beat, quarter notes in that case, although it could be, if it was an 8, it would be 8th notes or whatever the note value is. In this case, it tells you the division of the beat. It tells you that your beats, your 2 beats, will ultimately divide down into 6/8 notes. So because you need 2 beats and you have 6 things, you are going to have to group those things together into 2 equal groupings. And so you would group them into sets of 3, and your 6/8 notes, which you would write out like this. There's 6/8 notes. Your 6/8 notes would then be grouped into equal groups of 3 and given 1 note value. And the 1 note value that is the same as 3/8 notes is a dotted quarter note. So 2 dotted quarter notes, you have 2 beats, 1, 2, but each of those beats will divide down into 3 equal parts. And that is the essence of compound time, that you still have 2 beats, but you have a feeling of a lilting triple breakdown of the beat, rather than a lilting duple breakdown of the beat, which you would get in simple time. So the comparison of simple and compound time is essentially found in the background to the beat. Whether or not you feel the beat as essentially able to be divided into 2 parts, or you feel the beat as essentially able to be divided into 3 parts. And in simple time, the time signature tells you everything you need to know to find your beat group. In compound time, the time signature tells you how to get the division of the beat. You then have to group them together to find your actual beat, and you know how many beats because you refer to the chart here. You know, 6, 9, or 12 means 2 beats, 3 beats, or 4 beats. Hopefully this video has helped to clarify what you learned in the previous 2 videos on simple and compound time, and not to confuse you. But if you're confused at any point in those 3 videos, go back and review each one. Try and get in your head the concept of simple and compound time. It is tricky, but once you've got it, I think it will make much more sense. And again, like most things, I've done my best to try and explain it to you here, but real-world experience, playing music and being aware of how music feels in 6/8 time versus 4/4 time, or whatever the time signature might be, that's going to be a real way to solidify this understanding and to make this understanding more innate, which is ultimately what it has to become. Thank you.